Well, the problem I had with the auxiliaries, as I was mentioned, is that they thought they had nothing to learn. And I did jungle lane training with them, so there were hidden targets as we walked down a narrow path in the jungle, and they had to fire a couple of rounds at the target, which they would see suddenly. I mean, they were pretty well concealed. And as they walked, they would see them and open up, and by the time they got to the end of the jungle lane, we went to examine the targets, and they were all clean. There wasn't a single shot through them. And by letting them demonstrate to themselves that they were actually hopeless, they soon grasped what the problem was, and I could see what it was. The FN that we were using, or the AK at that time, made a loud bang in the ear. And if troops that are not used to using firearms would flinch, and that was the hassle. So what I did was I started off with a pellet gun and a 2.2, a rifle, and I taught them marksmanship and how not to flinch. And at that stage they were listening to me, and they had confidence, and really they were remarkably good. I couldn't believe that they would attain such a high standard of marksmanship as they did. Well, once they had confidence to do that, we then could do other exercises like fire with movement, where you get every alternate man running forward for, say, 20 or 30 meters and then going down. Meantime, the ones behind them are firing to keep the enemy's head down, and then when the front row would go down and start firing, the back row would come up like that. And they did fantastically well. And it was in those fire with movement exercises that originally caused the problem when they got wounded, is that the instructors started shooting at their feet to get them to move forward, and that's when the bullets hit the ground and went sideways and into their bodies. So it was a confidence building thing. The biggest problem we had was unauthorized discharges of weapons. We were actually located on an infiltration route that the terrorists used to use from Zambia, which was along the Angwa River. And I think the camp was put there partially so that the cadres would wake up, switch on, and realize that they could be attacked at any time. In fact, the terrorists did send people to come and see what was going on there. That's also in the book about how we dealt with that. And initially, the political commissar, who was not much more than a gardener with a gun, he got his appointment, I thought, by knowing more communist slogans than anybody else, with his ability to act as a soldier was about zero. But he carried authority. He didn't argue with the PC. If the PC, his job was to discipline his men. Any disciplinary acts that were going on, that was his problem. So I said to him one day, "What are you going to do about all these ADs that are going off?" An unauthorized discharge is actually, in Rhodesian terms, was called an accidental discharge. We called them ADs. So he said, "No, we're going to beat them." So I said, "Well, what are you going to beat them with?" He said, "No, a stick." So I said, "All right, so you're going to beat them with a stick. And how are you going to do that?" "We will give him 20 shots." So I said, 20? He said, "Yes." So I said, "All right, you give them 20 shots." But I said, you know what's going to happen? You're going to half kill the guy. It doesn't matter. They must learn. So I said, "All right, fine." On the day that it happened, some guy had an AD. They frog marched him to this tree, tied him up. The whole camp had to sit and watch. And the stick, when it came out, I was horrified. It was more like a branch than a stick. And they almost clubbed this guy to death. He couldn't walk. He was bruised and battered and had open wounds on him, and it took him a week to recover before he could even walk properly. In the meantime, others were having ADs as well. So I got out of the PC and I said to him, your system's not working. You're going to have nobody left to fight the war here the way you're carrying on. So I said, you better go and sort yourself out. Find out how else you can discipline your men. And they went away, and as usual, they had a little confab between all the leaders. And they came back and they said, no, we don't know, but you are our father, you must decide. Now, I'd thought this one out before, and I sort of expected this reply. So I said, no, it's no problem. What we'll do is, on parade in the morning, I will walk amongst you, and those of you who have not cleared your weapon for the daytime exercises, I'm going to take your weapon, and I put it against your head, and I take it off safe, and I'm going to pull the trigger. That way, the person who fails to clear his weapon isn't going to kill somebody else with an AD. He will be the one that dies. Is that fair? Ooh, there was a lot of consternation about this. And anyway, eventually they decided that that was okay and it was the way it was going to be. And that's exactly what happened. And I promise you, from that day one, there was not a single AD for the rest of the 6 weeks that we trained together.
All right, Keith.